Wilson, and what I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes is the SST transmission cooler. Now we know, based on the RalliARt and the EVO 10 with the 6-speed automatic transmission, that when they're pushed really hard, the transmission oil overheats and puts the car in a limp mode, and then you get stuck on the side of the road or the track, and the car won't drive until it's cooled down. Even with the factory fitted transmission cooler, these cars still will overheat the transmission. So what we're doing on this car is fitting a larger transmission cooler, which you can't see at the moment because we've just taken it out to make some more modifications to the mounting brackets. And it is an additional cooler to drop the transmission oil so you can drive the car hard in a reliable fashion to keep the transmission temperatures down. So I want to get my trusty cameraman to come over here and just show you some of the things. These are the two lines that we've fitted separately to the transmission, which are not connected to the factory lines. And down in here you can see one of the return lines drops into the transmission down there, and up underneath, which I'll show you in a still shot, but down underneath there is the supply line. Now the other big advantage with this kit is it's triggered remotely off the factory harness. You can run a separate switch to manually turn it on and off, but it's a standalone cooling system separate to the factory kit. So if you come around this side, you'll see the kit comes with a remote pump just to fit everything itself. Now this pump obviously then runs the whole system on its own, and then obviously you can reliably drive the car a lot harder. So we're obviously underneath the car now, and this is the line that takes the oil supply out of the transmission and up into the cooler. But I'll just show you also, we've had to do some things up here with space the lower transmission mount down to protect this fitting off the bottom of the transmission fitting itself, so it doesn't get damaged when you're driving the car around town. And also I'll show you, this is what the factory oil filter for the transmission should look like, and this is the one that's come out of the car. Now this car has been reasonably looked after by the customer, so if you haven't changed the transmission oil or the filter in your SST transmission yet, or you're not doing it often, strongly recommend you do it. But what you can do is fit a remote transmission filter, so you don't have to pay $200 or $300 for these simple plastic parts from Mitsubishi, and you can fit an inline filter like that one there, which all you have to simply do is clean it. And also you'll see just down on the ground down here the larger capacity pan on the side, whereas the original fitting one, which is that one there, and this larger capacity pan also has a dipstick, so you can actually check the level of the oil in the transmission. Obviously you're not going to lose a lot of oil when you're using the car, but it certainly makes it a lot easier when you fill it up on its initial fill.
Yes, he's got them in his hands. Give us a look, Fitzy. Fitzy, give us a look.
So the most of the project is now finished, and we've got the transmission cooler fitted. We've fitted the front bumper bar, we've modified the top radiator cover plate. We've also modified, you'll see here, the battery support mount to fit this fitting in here, and we're going to now fit a slightly smaller battery because there's physically not enough room to space the original battery up. But what I want to show you is the complexity of where now the kit fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take the rest of the bumper bar off so I can show you the level of the modifications that's needed to be required to fit this bar. And you can see the cooler now with the inlet and outlet lines, and the fact how neat and tidy a fit it is. The custom mount that we've had to fit on the car. The only modification really is fitting these brackets. We've maintained a lot of the original factory mounts. The only other small modification is you'll notice there's one bracket missing off the top here, which supports the top of the bar, because this is a front plastic bar support. But the really good thing is with this kit is it all looks original and fits actually factory standard. Whilst we've got the engine apart, or actually the air intake apart, I wanted to show you some valuable things that will help you understand more about under the bonnet of your RalliARt Lancer. And you can see over here we've got the whole airbox assembly apart with the air intake from the airflow meter sensor. With no battery in place. This is the replacement filter for the standard airbox. Now I want to point out to you, this is a K&N filter, which is a oiled cotton gauze filter. It's not like a uni filter which is made of foam. The difficulty with these is they're a little bit hard to clean. You need the special spray solution to dissolve the oil and get the dirt out of it. But they certainly work better than the factory paper filter. And of course the big thing is you never have to replace them. But don't let anybody convince you to buy one of these to give you miraculous increase in power, because frankly you won't measure the difference, but they will save you money. Whereas the other thing is that if you consider the Australian made uni filter, it's actually foam and you can actually dismantle it and clean it a lot easier. Saves you a little bit of money. Just one tip. This particular car has also got, obviously we spoke of earlier, the XC kit with the modified turbo. I just wanted to show you the complexity of what's needed. If you're going to fit a turbo off an EVO or some other modified turbo to your Lancer RalliARt, these are the parts that you need to get it down onto the modified turbo intake, because remember the Lancer RalliARt has got a different intake to the EVO because the battery's in the boot end of EVO, whereas the Lancer is in the front, which means the airbox moves back, and this is the intake to the airbox that sits there. And of course the intake comes through from under the front of the radiator and behind the front grille of the front bumper bar assembly. And we're going to have to do some modifications to this to increase the flow around this new transmission coil we've fitted. Some other parts that we've fitted to this particular car I wanted to show you is the RalliARt 1.3 bar radiator cap. Now the factory cap, which is on the Lancer, has only got one cap. Some Subarus have actually got two. This particular cap is actually a 1.1 bar cap. I'll show you in a close-up photo of that. Now, whereas the RalliARt Lancer cap is actually 1.3, which means you can run the car a bit hotter and have a higher pressure break-off point before you'll start losing coolant, which means that the track on a really, really hot day, you might come in off the track and the car will heat soak, trying to get rid of the heat. Sometimes you'll lose a bit of coolant at that point in time. The engine won't overheat, but it'll bleed off a little bit of coolant, and then as the day goes on and you lose coolant out of the system, and then when it drops down it'll suck back and not work correctly out of the recovery container. A 1.3 bar cap, which is not that expensive, is a good little trick from an upgrade point of view. I don't know why the manufacturers don't fit them in the first place. So there they have it, the critical parts of this incredible car from a technical update point of view. Okay, so you can see we've now basically finished the car and we've got the air intake all back together. We'll put the battery in place. We've had to use a smaller battery to allow room for the fitting for the return line to the top of the SST transmission. And as you can see, effectively the car looks very original, except for the small telltale signs of the holes that we've neatly drilled across the air intake here, because of the air intake for the Lancer comes through the grille and around and up underneath it into the intake there. But of course now down this area the intake is partially restricted by the SST transmission cooler. I also want to make sure that we get good airflow to the car when it's performing, because this car's got an XC kit, so it's radically quicker than a standard EVO 10. The good thing at the end of the day is this car's obviously now got an incredibly reliable transmission with a good transmission cooler to keep the heat down. Long-term reliability is going to be a lot better, and you're not going to have that ugly build-up of burnt oil inside the SST transmission that you've seen earlier on in the video. So that's it. Lancer RalliARt with the SST transmission cooler. Good package of parts with the additional trans pan on the side to increase the capacity, and a whole load of small bits and pieces to make it reliable. For more information, of course, you know where to find it, mrtperformance.com.au, on the web, Flickr, Facebook, Twitter. Pick up the phone, give us a call. For this video, thanks for watching. Look forward to helping you in the future. I'm Brett Middleton.